Founded in 1781, the city of Los Angeles has an extensive history of urban development. Past decades ushered in an industrialized city, and as Angelenos launched railway roads, freeways, and factories, Los Angeles slowly but steadily became one of the most urbanized cities in the United States. However, the lasting effects of urbanization have intentionally targeted low-income communities of color. The neighborhood of Boyle Heights directly borders the city of Vernon. There has been a lengthy history of Vernon's negative health effects on the people of Boyle Heights, coming from its chemical pumping factories, waste disposal sites, and lackluster pollution control. Race has played a major role in this promoted urban development planning, and it wasn't until recently that the California government has made an effort to clean the Boyle Heights environment by shutting down the Exide battery recycling plant. There is still a large number of malpractices being allowed, and a 95% Latino demographic in Boyle Heights is suffering the consequences. East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice advocates for a safer and healthier environment for low-income and predominantly colored communities of Los Angeles that are affected by industrial pollution.
Well, I grew up in East LA, and the Maravilla projects, and my entire family has grown up in East LA. My grandmother currently lives in the impacted area from Exide, and I have an aunt and a couple of cousins that also live in some of the areas that was contaminated. So I'm part of the group that was contaminated by Exide, so that's my direct connection to the company. The organization started to look into the permits of Exide for about more than 10 years ago. So once we got the soil test done, that pretty much identified how far the contamination went from Exide. And that happened about a year and a half ago. So that was the initial push that actually took down Exide and managed to close it down because of the high levels of lead contamination. So right now we're transitioning, or we're still in the process of identifying how far the contamination went. Right now it's about 10,000 homes that have been contaminated, which we expect to be a lot higher. So now we're transitioning into forcing Exide to identify how much of our community is contaminated and forcing them to clean up.
Aside from Vernon, environmental racism is manifested among other corporations that target and exploit underrepresented communities.
What is supposed to be a recycling center in Boyle Heights has illegally turned into a dumping ground, one that caught fire earlier this year and may pose a hazard to the city's water supply.
The Boyle Heights Recycling Center, Clean Up America, had only been allowed to store 2.8 million pounds of trash, with piles as high as 12 feet, and proper disposal of the trash after 15 days. Clean Up America had stored 22 million pounds of garbage, with piles double the legal limit. The corporation was sued by the city of Los Angeles for the blatant disregard of public health after abusing the regulations. Boyle Heights suffers from intense proximity to freeways, and the map demonstrated 5 freeways border the neighborhood. The freeways that plague the community of Boyle Heights pose numerous health hazards to residents because of its immense pollution. The location of the freeways to local establishments and public areas such as Hollenbeck Park, Garcia Park, and Lorena Elementary impact the well-being of children and families. Facility siting has demonstrated the effects of corporations purposefully targeting communities with little to no white residents. Historically speaking, the overall decrease in white residents has allowed communities experiencing the demographic transition to be more vulnerable to treatment, storage, and disposal facility sightings because of their lack of adequate social and political networks. Environmental racism is used to describe the connection between race and the infrastructure established in predominantly colored communities who have little authority in urban planning. These purposeful conditions result in physical and mental health defects.
The majority of communities that have been impacted by environmental racism are low-income, underrepresented communities of color. They've been redlined into communities that have high number of industrial facilities. They're completely bordered by various freeways. There's rail yards. Just a lot of built infrastructure that has trapped these communities into these pollution hotspots, and you have all these cumulative impacts. A lot of people don't know what's going on in their community. They know that, their community always gets talked about as, there's a lot of violence and things like that, but nobody talks about the structural violence no one talks about the environmental violence that's going on in our community.